I never believed in the supernatural until that fateful night when I found myself at the center of an eerie and inexplicable event. It was a dark and stormy night, the kind of night that sends shivers down your spine even before anything out of the ordinary happens. I was driving alone on a desolate stretch of highway, rain pounding against my windshield like a relentless drumbeat. The GPS had led me onto a winding road that seemed to appear out of nowhere, a road that wasn't on any map. It felt like the world had shifted, and I was the only one left in this desolate landscape. As I drove further into the night, my headlights cast long, sinister shadows that danced menacingly on the trees lining the road. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and my heart raced as I began to notice something strange in my rearview mirror. There was a pair of headlights behind me, but they weren't getting closer or fading into the distance. They were simply there, always following at the same distance, no matter how fast or slow I drove. My curiosity turned to fear when I realized there was no other car visible through the rearview mirror. Just those unrelenting headlights like the eyes of a relentless predator locked onto its prey. I checked the time. It was well past midnight, and there should have been no one else on this road. In a panic, I sped up, hoping to shake off the mysterious pursuer. But it was as if the road itself was conspiring against me. It stretched on endlessly, the trees closing in like sinister sentinels. My phone had lost signal, and I was completely isolated. I couldn't call for help, and I couldn't escape. As the minutes turned into hours, the headlights behind me seemed to grow brighter and more menacing. I could feel a presence, an oppressive energy that seemed to seep through the car's windows and into my very soul. The fear was suffocating, and I was on the verge of a breakdown. Then, just as suddenly as it had all begun, the headlights disappeared. I was left alone on that lonely road, rain still pouring down, heart pounding, and mind reeling from the inexplicable terror I had just experienced. I continued to drive, desperate to put as much distance between myself and that nightmarish encounter as possible. To this day, I can't explain what happened that night. I can't rationalize it, and I've never found that mysterious road again. But I know one thing for sure. There are things in this world that defy explanation, that lurk in the shadows of our reality, waiting for the right moment to remind us that we are not alone. And I, the victim of that terrifying night, will never look at darkness the same way again. As I reached the outskirts of a small town, I finally spotted a gas station. It was a welcome sight, and I pulled in, my trembling hands fumbling to get the car to a stop. The attendant came out, a curious look on his face as he saw my disheveled state. "Rough night, huh?" he remarked. I nodded, not trusting my voice just yet. I needed a moment to collect myself. After what felt like an eternity, I finally managed to speak. "You wouldn't believe what I just went through," I said, my voice still quivering. The attendant leaned in closer, intrigued. "Try me." So, as the rain continued to pour outside, I recounted my harrowing experience on that desolate road. The attendant listened with a mixture of fascination and disbelief, occasionally glancing out the window into the darkness beyond. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. "That's one heck of a story," he said, shaking his head. "But you know what they say about these parts, right? This place has a history, and sometimes the past likes to catch up with you, especially on nights like these." I couldn't help but shiver at his words. It was as if he knew something I didn't, something that explained the inexplicable events of that night. I left the gas station with a sense of unease, wondering if I had stumbled upon a place where reality and the supernatural intertwined in ways I couldn't comprehend. As I drove away from that small town, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had witnessed something beyond the ordinary. And I couldn't help but wonder if I would ever find answers to the mysteries of that night, or if it would remain an enigma, forever haunting my memories. I had always been a skeptic, dismissing ghost stories and paranormal tales as mere superstitions. That was until I found myself in the middle of a chilling night drive that would forever change my beliefs. It was a crisp autumn evening, and I was taking a shortcut through a dense forest to visit a friend's house. My GPS led me down a narrow, winding road that seemed to have been swallowed by the encroaching trees. The sky had turned an inky black, and the only light came from my car's headlights. As I navigated the serpentine road, the trees closed in, casting eerie shadows that danced and swayed in the wind. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that unseen eyes were peering out from the darkness. A chill crept up my spine. I was in the heart of the forest when I noticed something unusual in my rearview mirror. A pair of glowing red eyes stared back at me, unblinking and malevolent. My heart skipped a beat, and I pressed harder on the gas pedal, trying to outrun whatever was behind me. The eyes remained, a constant, haunting presence in the mirror. No matter how fast I drove, they maintained the same distance, always watching, always following. Panic set in as I realized there was no logical explanation for this. There were no other cars on this desolate road, and the eyes seemed to defy the laws of physics. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I desperately tried to make sense of the situation. My phone had no signal, leaving me utterly isolated in the forest's depths. The trees seemed to whisper sinister secrets, and the wind howled like a chorus of lost souls. Suddenly, the eyes in the mirror vanished, and the forest around me grew eerily silent. It was as though the very essence of fear had settled over the road, squeezing the air from my lungs. I slowed the car to a crawl, cautiously peering out into the darkness. That's when I saw it, a figure standing in the middle of the road, cloaked in shadows. It had an otherworldly spectral quality, like a wraith emerging from the depths of my worst nightmares. I couldn't make out its features, but I could feel its malevolence seeping through the car's windows. As I approached, the figure raised an ethereal hand, beckoning me to stop. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but a morbid curiosity held me in its grip. I rolled down my window just a fraction, my voice barely a whisper. What do you want?" The figure didn't respond with words, but its intentions were clear. It wanted me to follow it into the heart of the forest, into the unknown. Terror coursed through me, but I couldn't look away from those haunting eyes. In that moment, a deafening roar erupted from the forest behind me. I turned to see a horde of ghostly apparitions emerging from the trees, their eyes burning with the same malevolent red glow. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized I had stumbled upon something beyond comprehension. With a surge of adrenaline, I slammed my foot on the gas pedal and sped past the figure and its spectral companions. The forest whizzed by in a blur, and I didn't stop until I had reached the safety of my friend's house. I never returned to that forest, and I never fully understood what I had encountered that night. It shattered my skepticism, leaving me with a haunting certainty that there are forces in this world that defy explanation, that lurk in the shadows, waiting to remind us that reality is far stranger and more terrifying than we can imagine. As days turned into weeks, I couldn't shake the trauma of that night. Nightmares plagued my sleep, and I became obsessed with uncovering the truth. I delved into research, spoke to locals, and scoured old archives for any clues about the forest and the sinister presence that inhabited it. Eventually, I came across an ancient legend whispered among the townsfolk. They spoke of a vengeful spirit, a guardian of the forest, who punished those who dared to trespass into its domain. It was said that the spirit had been wronged in life and now sought retribution in death. Determined to confront my fears, I returned to the forest one moonless night, armed with a flashlight, a camera, and a heart filled with trepidation. The atmosphere was stifling, the air thick with an unexplainable malevolence. I trudged deeper into the woods, each step echoing with dread. Suddenly, I heard a faint, mournful whisper carried on the wind. It called my name, a disembodied voice that sent shivers down my spine. I followed the sound, my heart pounding like a drum. There, amidst the gnarled trees and the oppressive darkness, I saw it. The same spectral figure, its red eyes piercing through the night. It stood before a towering oak tree, its branches twisted like grotesque limbs. The figure beckoned once more, and I hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. But this time, I was prepared. I knew the legend, and I had come to make amends, to offer a heartfelt apology for my intrusion into its realm. I spoke words of remorse, my voice quivering with sincerity. The figure seemed to waver, its malevolence giving way to something akin to sadness. It slowly dissolved into mist, dissipating into the night. The forest grew still, and the air no longer held that suffocating tension. From that day forward, the forest remained a place of quiet solitude, no longer haunted by the vengeful spirit. I had confronted the unknown, and in doing so, I had not only survived, but also brought peace to a tormented soul. My beliefs had shifted, transformed by an encounter that defied explanation. I realized that there are forces beyond our comprehension, mysteries that elude our understanding. And as I drove away from that forest, I carried with me a newfound respect for the unseen, a reminder that reality is far more intricate and enigmatic than we can fathom.